there, Mandy Friedman here, licensed professional clinical counselor, clinically certified domestic violence counselor, clinically certified trauma professional, level 2, the creator of SNAP, survivors of narcissistic and abusive personalities. I'm back with my brother, Andrew. Hi, Andrew.
Hey, Mandy. Today we get to talk about the 7th episode of Succession Season 4 called Tailgate Party.
What is the tailgate party?
So every year there is a party, and it's not a tailgate party. It is it's actually at Shiv and Tom's apartment, I guess Shiv's apartment now, and it's very swanky. And the idea is that they are going to invite the most powerful people that could affect the election, that they could make, deals with and stuff like that. That's basically what this is. This is a den of thieves and iniquity. That's what's going on here. But we have the kids there, at opposite tasks, kind of. And that's kind of the fun of this episode.
So it's the night before the election and they're having this big party.
We don't start at the party, though. We start with Tom and Shiv. And Tom gives Shiv a joke gift that does not go over well. What's this about? He
gives her this scorpion that's encased in glass, like a paperweight type gift. She doesn't really find it funny. He's, I guess, trying to say, like, you're the scorpion. And she takes offense and he's like, it's just a joke. But it doesn't sit well with her.
This is the story of the scorpion and the snake is the story, I believe. And so that they've referenced before. So that's what this is in reference to. We also have a meeting between Kendall and Rava on the streets of New York, I guess.
Apparently, Kendall's daughter, Sophie, is experiencing some social pressure and having issues because her dad runs ATN, which is known to be this very right-wing news organization that, kids who are more progressive-minded and more educated would not be real thrilled about. So she's getting some sort of bullying going on. There's somebody that walked past her in the street that, brushed by her, and it's causing her some social issues. And Rava thought that she would be able to have a rational conversation with Kendall about this so that he's informed and understands that Sophie's struggling and that they're going to be taking measures to address that with her. And instead of being rational, Kendall immediately starts to escalate and then starts to blame and point the finger and saying to Rava, where were you when that happened to her? What was she doing walking through the streets? And Rava's like, are you serious right now? Like, for real? And she starts to get revved up. You can see her. She says, how dare you interrogate me right now? But then right when she gets there, you see her notice that that's happening. And then she starts to de-escalate and then she walks away.
What does that tell you about Rava as a person?
Rava has done some work on herself. I would imagine she's been to therapy. I would imagine that someone taught her about dealing with a narcissist and the best ways to handle narcissistic people. You can see how she handles Kendall and doesn't get sucked into his high conflict personality. She sort of backpedals away and then doesn't engage. But you can see how easy it is to get sucked into a conflict with someone like him, who isn't listening to understand, isn't there to solve issues, but instead is trying to figure out, am I the bad guy? No, I'm not the bad guy. You're the bad guy. And that's the most important thing to him. In fact, I believe that's part of his defense, is saying like, hey, I'm the good guy here. I'm not the bad guy. But that's why Sophie, his daughter, is having issues is because her dad is the bad guy.
Yeah, Rava hits back at him. She calls ATN a racist news organization, which it is. And Kendall's got no response to that. So it's fun in the show when we get to see someone handle the kids. And maybe, in a way, parent them. You know what I mean? Do for them what their parents should have done. It's kind of fun to see that. Next, Mandy, we move on to the funeral planning committee, which is all 4 kids meeting for brunch. And we get some information here. We need a tight 90, so we need to know who's going to speak. Kendall also wants to invite Nate to the tailgate party to help kill the Mattson deal. But this is, we get to see Shiv start to work here a little bit, too.
Shiv and Tom are texting. You can see Shiv's texting, and there's like some sexting happening. Connor starts off talking about the funeral, but then he gets a call. He walks away. That's when Kendall starts in on Shiv. What are we going to do in terms of the tailgate party? We need Nate to come. And she's like, oh. Because remember, Nate is a boyfriend from the past who, you know, a while back, 3 seasons ago, I guess she was in an open relationship with Tom, and Nate is someone that she was sleeping with. And so then there was also a scene where like Tom kicks Nate out of their house at a certain point. So bringing Nate back into the picture is not going to make Tom very happy, and Shiv's trying to maybe mend fences with Tom.
She's also notifying Mattson of the plan against him from Kendall at the same time. In this episode, we are, properly introduced to double agent Shiv. She is working both sides. In fact, she's working 3 sides. So she's triple agent Shiv in this case. We get a fun scene, and I know these scenes are mean, but they're also so fun when we get Tom and Greg doing evil corporate bullshit. And here they are firing people.
So Tom sits down at this desk. They're having a giant Zoom meeting with a big group of people. He sits down and he says, I just want to say, this is a sad day, and, these kinds of things are horrible to have to do, and it makes me sad. And he kind of fakes like that he's tearing up. And then he's like, well, I'm going to hand this over to Greg now. And then he gets up, and then Greg sits down and reads the statement where he's firing all these people. And he's saying, it's a sad day. It's a sad day. They're not allowing anyone to speak. There's only the chat going on. And so Greg's like, apparently there's some, confusion here in the chat. In case I was too wordy, yes, we are letting you all go. And you look over and you see Tom is mocking the sadness and going like this. So he's faking tears and he's faking tears. What's so great about Tom?
It's a funny scene. That also comes up later. Now, we are at the party finally, right? We're at their swanky apartment, and there's all kinds of people there we don't recognize. There's some that we do. Tom has an issue with the wine that becomes a running joke throughout the episode. Tell me all about the wine, Mandy.
Well, apparently Tom and Shiv got brought into some wine scam where they bought a vineyard. And since then, the wine they've been getting from it is pretty crappy, but they have a lot of it. So he's trying to push the wine, and he's giving the server ways to sell the wine that it's supposed to taste this way. It's from this region. And if it's a little fizzy, that's normal. But then, while we're watching the episode, you hear people commenting about the wine. This is really representing the larger picture of how these people are in the business of selling you a shit sandwich and making you go, it's delicious. This is what Tom is doing with the wine. And then you see the people kind of in this state of cognitive dissonance, like, pretty sure this is crappy, but that doesn't make any sense because it's supposed to be the best. And we're in like the swankiest penthouse, but we'll drink it anyway. And really that's kind of realistic in terms of how you get people to just buy into something that isn't good for them.
It's amazing, and it is a metaphor for everything that everyone's doing, including Kendall and Mattson and Shiv and everybody else in this episode. Kendall decides to give a speech, a moment of silence for his dad, and somebody decides to make their entrance right then and there.
Shiv clued Mattson in that he should be there because of all the important people, but also because of what her brothers were planning to do to try to tank the deal. And so she told him, you should come. And he does. He shows up right during the moment of silence. When they're having a moment of silence for Logan, that's when he shows up.
He has his main Viking, Oscar, who he's actually in that TV show Vikings, the newest season of it that came out on Netflix, which is very appropriate casting. And of course, Ebba, his former sort of girlfriend person that is not very pleased with him. And he doesn't do anything to help that. In fact, he makes it worse. And we'll talk about that more. We get to see Shiv and Mattson go up and pitch Nate. And then we get to see Kendall go up and pitch Nate. And he's not comfortable with either one. He doesn't seem like he's happy to be there. He kind of looks like he's walking on eggshells.
At a certain point, he steps away from Kendall and acts like that he's going to go check and see if maybe this deal might work, whatever the thing that Kendall is suggesting. In other words, we'll scratch your back if you scratch ours, sort of a situation. Nate is also kind of playing along to a certain point. But then we see that Nate tells Kendall he has to go and says that the reason is because it doesn't look good for him to be associating with some of the people that are here. In other words, there are really right-leaning people that are also racist. They are in the Mencken camp where they're white supremacists. I guess it's normal for the Logan family to just hobnob with whomever. In fact, was it Connor that said that Logan used to associate with a wide range of people? And because that's what's in his best interest, he would want to have favors in both camps. Mm-hmm. So there would be people at that party that it wouldn't look good for Nate to be there with. He tells Kendall that he has to go. Kendall continues to try to persuade him, and Nate just sort of says to him, almost like in a fatherly way or a parental way, he says, look, I'm not Gil and you're not Logan. And that's a good thing, he says.
It's quite a statement, because Kendall rejects that. Like, you can see it in his face. Like, what do you mean that's a good thing? You know, Nate shuts him down by telling him, I'm not comfortable with the tenor of this conversation. As if to say, I don't want dirt on me because I don't do that. You know, I don't know why you invited me here, but I'm not going to get my hands dirty because I don't get my hands dirty. And this offends Kendall, because it's like saying, I'm better than you. And Kendall's like, well, better than me? And he does not react well. And you feel like that bridge is burned now, you know, which is, I think, important going forward. So he has left. The tenor of the conversation has gotten to a point where he cannot be there any longer, Nate. So now we have this moment where we have the Viking, Ebba, and Madsson down in kind of like the lower level. Kendall assigns Greg to go down and kind of like try to get in with the Vikings. And Greg is like, well, they don't like me, pretty much. So they made it clear they don't like him, and they do not. But he offers to fire Ebba for Madsson since he has such experience and he's so good at it. And that's where we get the conversation about that. That's a lot of fun. All of these things kind of convalesce into a big moment for the show and for Succession, because Ebba makes a scene. She gets angry and goes outside. And we have Kendall and Roman follow her outside to get some dirt.
And the way they approach her is, are you okay? You know, on a human level, are you okay? As if they give a shit. They're vultures, you know, they're just opportunists. But they were right to follow her because, you know, hell hath no fury. And she's got some things to say. And she lets them know that actually Madsson is not a coder, that he sort of happened into a lot of his success, but that another thing that's been going on that they don't know about is that he has a click farm in India that inflates his subscription numbers. And that's something that, and now that cat's out of the bag. And they're so happy to have that piece of information. Shiv is now a part of it because they bring Shiv in and say, guess what? Because they think that Shiv's on their side. Right. So they tell Shiv, guess what? Madsson's numbers are fudged, you know, if they're not real. And now they have even more power in the situation. They're happy to hear this because they can start telling people this is a bad deal that's not even, you know, their numbers aren't real. Remember in the last episode when they were fudging their numbers? What was it? Living well?
Yeah. Living Plus.
Living Plus, and how that was somehow going to inflate the value of their company. So they're well versed in the tricks of the trade and what people do. So they recognize that that's going on with him. They pull Shiv in, and now they're going to try to launch this counter attack.
Mandy, there are two scenes with Madsson and Shiv in the coat room. Well, it's just probably their spare bedroom or something, but it's unless their swanky apartment has a coat room, which it might. So they have these scenes. There's three or four scenes in this coat room. It gets a lot of action, but two of them are between Shiv and Madsson. The first one is where Shiv basically kind of puts a screws to them and says, well, what is my role going to be if you do get this deal, right? Because I'm working hard for you and you haven't really given me any kind of commitment. But the second one is right after we learn about the cook in the books thing.
She goes right up to confront Matsson about the numbers and what's been going on. And she sees how that this is going to come out. And she's trying to explain to him how it's going to come out. And he's saying, no, we can hide it all in this big, gorgeous deal. It'll just go away because we'll do the deal and then no one's ever going to. She's like, no. They're going to look into this. They're going to see that this is there. She's upset because she has connected herself to him and thinking that this is a good bet to make is on this horse. While she's also playing this side over here. Now she's seeing that she may have made a mistake by being on the side of Matsson because it's going to come out. And he can't seem to accept this. He's also really high. You can tell that he's, under the influence of something. And he just wants to sweep it all under the rug. He also doesn't know how to talk to women. So he's nervous around her. She can talk to him in ways that other people cannot. He is starting to be a little uneasy, but you can see that his defensive-ness is to act cool. Like it's fine. It'll all be fine. She's thinking it is not going to be fine.
It's not cool.
Not cool.
So this leads to a big kind of blow up between Kendall and Matsson right in front of everybody. Now, what Mandy described their kind of tactics as they argue with each other publicly.
They're speaking in code. They're dog whistling. They got smiles on, but they're jabbing each other. And it's just this like power trip moment for both of them. It's a power struggle of who can say the wittier thing to the other. But Kendall finally says, it's, your numbers, it's like they're literally unbelievable. Like we're, in the fourth grade, like on the playground is what this is sounding like. And then that's what happens next is Matsson says, oh yeah, well, your numbers, you're gay. And that's the best he's got. And that's super homophobic. He's also said a lot of other things that, he's got some bodies buried and these things are starting to come up. So that makes Kendall feel like that he's got the leverage here now. So he's renewed in his efforts.
We'll learn later what Kendall's plan is because he's got a plan here. But we got to talk about Connor. Connor's role in this episode is that he is running for president. And Menken's team thinks that like he's now got enough percentage, like 3 to 4% in Alaska. This could hurt Menken's voter base numbers and everything because Connor's taking from that side with his campaign. So Menkins wants Connor to drop out, and this leads to many interesting conversations between him and Roman, who is kind of negotiating this on behalf of Menken.
So Roman is telling Connor that if you drop out, they're willing to give you an ambassadorship. But they start with like Somalia is what they're offering. And Connor's like, I'll think about it. He talks to Willa and he comes back and now they're saying, okay, well, we don't want that one. What about this one? And he just keeps coming back with no, because it's not good enough. Basically, he wants, he's happy to hear about the ambassadorship, but he wants a swanky one. So at a certain point, Roman says, there's Slovenia and Slovakia. And Connor's like, no. There's Jordan, I believe, Oman. Is that? Yeah, Oman. And so he goes to Willa and says, how about this? And he's trying to sell her on it. And she's like, doesn't seem very friendly to women there. He's like, don't worry about it. You'll be fine. She recognizes that it may not be safe for her. She's not on board with this. So at a certain point, Connor tells Roman, no, I decided that I'm going to continue the race. And it's because Willa has pointed out that I have invested and lots of people have invested. Why throw that all away right now? And Roman gets really nasty and starts chewing Connor out, saying that, everyone thinks you're a joke. No one's going to vote for you anyway. And then he's like, oh, you're going to do it because she told you? Like, really? Like your wife? So he's being nasty about Willa. And sort of like Rava at the beginning of the episode, Connor stands up, says, well, Willa actually believes in me. And so, yes, I'm going to do what makes her happy. come on, darling, let's leave. And they leave. It's really refreshing to see somebody handle the situation. Not that I like Connor, not that he should be running for president. He's a giant piece of shit just like the rest of them in terms of, but at the same time, there is something gratifying about seeing him resist the manipulative tactics of his siblings.
We've also seen Roman lose control from his emotions many times now, and this is getting more and more ramped up. This is another example. He just got shut down by Jerry right before this. That pissed him off. There was something else that pissed him off, and then this is what happens, is that he blows up. He doesn't have a hobby. He doesn't have an outlet for anything. He doesn't have someone he loves that he can tell these things. He just blows up. That's what he does.
Well, where did he learn that? There's modeling that have been going on this whole time. That is that if you want people to do what you say, you scare them and you scream at them and you threaten them. He tried doing that with Jerry. He's, and it doesn't go well for him. And he just can't get it through his head, kind of like Kendall. You're not your dad. It's not going to work for you. You don't have that kind of weight to throw around. Nobody respects you. Everybody else that is around them that isn't their family is only there to get to their next thing too. There's nobody that is in their vicinity that's there because they want to do what's right by them, right? So how is he going to be a good leader or have any kind of people skills when he had Logan as his father figure?
He's very confused too. We saw in the very first episode what Roman's response to getting power like his dad was, and it was jerking off on a window. So he is a very confused young man, and we get to see that play out right in front of us during this show, and it's wild. So let's talk about Tom and Shiv. Let's start with Tom here. Tom, as the party is going on, every conversation that Tom has had with someone, they've been like, "So getting fired, huh?" And it's kind of similar to when he was going to go to jail. Everyone was just kind of consoling him. "Oh, I'm really sorry, but that's really great for you that you're doing that." And that's what's going on with Tom all night. He's also tired. He has a massive day tomorrow because he's the head of ATN, and their guy is probably going to win the election tomorrow. So he wants to go to bed, and he's all pissed off. Shiv and Tom want to have a conversation. They're starting to get a little emotional with each other as well. So they go out on the porch, and this is one of the best scenes in the whole show. I love this scene so much. It's like these two are angry with each other, and they have it out, and nothing gets resolved. And I like that. I don't know why. That's so messy and how like a real life actually is. So I like that.
Tom is one that usually would want to talk things out, and Shiv's the one that doesn't want to talk things out. He's like, "Come on, let's clear the air." And she's like, "All right, let's clear the air." She brings up the scorpion. She says, "You're going to have a chat with the scorpion," basically. And he's like, I said that was a joke. It was really seriously supposed to be like a warm, friendly joke, the scorpion thing. And she's, still not buying that. And then she calls him a snake. She's like, "How would it feel if I, got a necktie with a snake on it and says, 'Here, happy birthday,' because you're a snake." And they just start going back and forth at each other, saying the meanest, nastiest things that they can say. She tells him that she doesn't love him. He says to her, "You should have never married me." He says to her, "You will be fine." In other words, in this situation, I'm walking around this party in my house, and every conversation has to do with me being fired. And they heard it from you. You're the one who's been walking around spreading that gossip. She's saying, "Yeah, but I'm just doing what I have to do. I said that because it was strategic, blah, blah, blah." She's trying to explain why she did that. So he's going around, he's saying, every conversation, people are telling me that I'm about to get fired. You will be fine, though. In other words, in this situation, I'm the one that everything is at risk because he doesn't come from where she comes from. The only reason he is where he is because of how he has maneuvered their family and married her. And then she points that out. So that's how they're pointing the finger back and forth, is he's saying, "You'll do whatever it takes because that's just what you do." And she's like, "No, that's you. You do whatever it takes to get where you need to go, and including marrying me." Really, they're the same person in a sense. They're both doing whatever they need to do to get to where they want to go. They really are. Although he says to her, no, I actually love you. I'm with you because I love you. Now, does he? I guess we'll never know. He's at least fooled himself into thinking that he loves her. But I think Tom might have had other options too. I don't know how many billionaire daughters there are out there, but he does seem to date around. He could have chosen different avenues. So part of me wants to believe that part of Tom does love her, but when they're arguing, he never wavers from that. He'll say the mean stuff, but he always comes back to the I love you. He did say something really mean, which was, maybe you're somebody who shouldn't have kids because you're not a good person.
That cuts deep.
Now we know that she's currently pregnant. Nobody else knows that, but she does. Tom points out that the last time this happened, like what you said, had to do with when he was going to prison. And he says, you were going to send me to prison. And she says, you offered. You served yourself up. You're servile, she said. You offered because you were being strategic. You did that to yourself. You were trying to figure out how to get where you needed to go. And it turns out that you were ready to go to prison for my dad just to gain favor. So she points out that he's just as strategic. He's just trying to get where he wants to go, just like she's trying to get where she wants to go. So when you say that they had this blow up, they're angry at each other, but it didn't get anywhere, it didn't go anywhere, I would say maybe it did go somewhere, and that they realize how similar they are and how that their goals actually align. The problem is that they don't know how to be together because they're both nasty people. They don't really know how to love. He's saying to her, you're incapable of love. I love you, but you're incapable of love. And hence the reason she shouldn't have children. So in his mind, he genuinely does care about her, and she's a cold-hearted bitch that does not care about anybody. But we know that's not true either, because we see more of the emotional side that Shiv doesn't show. As the audience, we see how she does struggle with things, how that, when she's by herself, that she, the emotions come out. So I think that she does care about Tom, that she just isn't going to let that come out, because then that makes her vulnerable. At least Tom is able to be vulnerable.
Loving someone in the Roy family and showing that means attacking them. It doesn't mean showing them love in a normal way. That's weakness. And this is what Shiv is struggling with. She doesn't know how to act. And she thinks that it's just like when Roman blows up and Kendall blows up. It's the same thing, and that's why this show rules. The reason why I say they didn't get anywhere is because they took a step backwards a little bit in this scene, because I thought they'd already figured this out. Last episode, Tom is sitting on the bed like this while she's texting Mattson making moves, and he's rooting her on. But she was also adoring him at that moment and giving him the attention that he wants. So, it's like, it's more like a real relationship though here. And I really like that, because things can move forward and back. And after the air has been cleared, it is as clear as mud. We have one more kind of big thing to talk about here, and that is Kendall making a move here at the end. We go back to the coat closet, and him and Frank have a meeting in there, and he tells Frank about the fake numbers. Kendall wants to pillage the village.
Kendall brings some very important information to Frank and says, let's pull a reverse Viking and pillage their village, because now we know that they're actually smaller fish that we can swallow up. And Frank kind of seems interested. He doesn't totally shut it down. And Kendall also says, and there can only be one king, one head, one crown. I don't want my siblings involved. If we do this, it's me, and that's what I want. And it kind of seems like that Frank might be on board.
This is something I've never noticed in a watch through of this series, is that Kendall makes these moves at the last second. And almost like the last 3 or 4 episodes, it's been a meeting with him and one of the sharks where he's going, you're going to do this. You know what I mean? And here he says this isn't a business meeting in the coat room. It's just Ken and Frank, and Frank's like, okay. but Frank knows how to work Kendall. So like you said, he kind of agrees with everything, cutting out the siblings again. Oh, Kendall, I mean, maybe he's right to do that. They are not on his side anyway. So Roman decides that he's going to be the one to have a tight 90. He's going to talk at the funeral, and Tom finally goes to bed.
Yeah, I mean, without even knowing what's going to happen, we know that Roman can't handle these moments. After the night they've had and all the shit that's going on, no one's in their right mind. They're like, okay, sure, yeah, fine. But we all know that Roman is not the person to do the job here.
These siblings are never going to stop each other from doing the dumb thing. They root each other on. You want to do the dumb thing? I'm right behind you. Let's do it.
Yes.
So funny.
The last thing we see is poor, tired Tom laying in bed with his eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. He just kicks everybody out of the party, which is funny because people are pretty much like, whatever. But they start to dissipate and leave, and he still cannot fall asleep. But he kind of looks like he's thinking, like it's almost like he's having a moment of clarity or he's terrified. It's hard to tell, but he is not able to sleep after all of that.
Well, once again, his job and livelihood is in jeopardy, and he doesn't know what's going to happen. We do. And I'm looking forward to it. We only have a few episodes left, Mandy. I love Succession, and I love talking about it with you.
I feel the same. Looking forward to the next episode. Thank you for watching or listening. Bye-bye.